So this is the story about the time they sent me to breathing therapy. Well, actually my heart was so strained I couldn't breathe well. Hi, my name is Natalie and I'm the founder of the Unchargeables chronic illness support group. And today I'm telling you the story about when I was a teenager and I had all these vague symptoms, including shortness of breath, and they sent me to breathing therapy because they thought it was all in my head. Subscribe, hit the like button, and follow the Unchargeables for more stories like this from me personally and from all the others that are in our community. So my symptoms started around when I was 14 years old that I can remember. I was sitting in class and I lived in Holland at the time, so I was having my Dutch class. Out of the blue, I get these shooting pains up here in my arms that I fell out of my chair while sitting down in the middle of class. So they did all sorts of tests. They checked my muscles, they checked my joints, they checked like if I had rheuma. They checked all these different things and they couldn't find anything wrong with me, so they're like, well, those are growing pains. I was 14, it didn't really make sense, but well, you listen to your doctor, right? Over the course of the next couple of years, my symptoms started to change and were just really weird. So by the time I was 16, I was experiencing shortness of breath basically all the time. I felt like I couldn't breathe in very deeply. So they checked my oxygen levels and my oxygen levels were fine. So they decided it's all in my head. By the time that I was almost 18, they sent me to breathing therapy because they thought I was having panic attacks. While I really thought like, well, I don't feel like I'm having panic attacks. Like it's not really sudden that it comes up and it kind of dies down. I just feel like I can never breathe properly. And I had these dreams in which I was choking. I was underwater and I felt like I couldn't breathe. And then after, I don't know what felt like ages, but it was probably a couple of minutes of actually not being able to breathe and dreaming about drowning, I would wake up, grab a deep breath, and just my body was in so much stress. And I told my doctors this and they're like, no, you're just having anxiety attacks. So I went to these breathing therapies where I learned to ground myself and to breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, how to do these exercises when you're in situations where you need to calm down, which basically in the end has really helped me when I was pregnant and in labor, like 15 years later, and when I was in scary situations, that really helped me. But health-wise, it did nothing for me because there was nothing wrong anxiety-wise with me. I was not having panic attacks. By the time I was around 19, I was going through different tests and hospitals and things all the time, and I couldn't find anything wrong with me. And like the worst thing people could tell me was like, well, your test results came back negative. You're the picture of perfect health. And that would really upset me because I knew something was wrong. While obviously getting back a test result negative should be a positive thing. It should make you feel good because you don't have whatever illness they were looking for. But I knew there was something really wrong with me, so it made me quite upset. When I was 19, they did another whole body test, a blood test with everything. Like just cross out everything, like mark everything and just test whatever you can test. My doctor was like, okay, let's go and do that. And they found that there was something wrong with my thyroid. And he said, well, you're gonna have to go to the hospital and they're gonna make an echo of your thyroid. I'm like, okay. So he says, call this and this hospital and make an appointment. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. So I called the hospital and I'm like, well, my test results came back bad, I guess, and I need to make an appointment with a specialist. And this lady on the phone asks me, is it urgent? I'm like, I don't know, my doctor didn't tell me it was urgent, so I guess it's not. She's like, well, there's a 4-month waiting list, so if it's not urgent, I'm just gonna put you on a waiting list and you can come and see the doctor in 4 months. I'm like, okay, that sounds fine. So by this time, I'm 19, I'm living on my own in another city from where my family lives, and I was working part-time. And while working part-time in this butcher shop, there was one day that people kind of looked at me really weird, like, there's something wrong with your neck. I'm like, what's wrong with my neck? So I looked in the mirror and it looked like I had swallowed like an inflatable, you know, these round donuts you go swimming with in the water. It looked like a cartoon, and I swallowed it because my neck was like swollen like this, really, really, really bad. And I'm like, well, it doesn't hurt. I can touch it and it's kind of weird, but it doesn't hurt at all. And my hands started shaking, and we'd have this, remember I was 19 and I didn't know anything was really wrong, right? And I've already been to the doctor and I'm on the waiting list to go to the hospital. So I'm kind of like, okay, so I guess I just have to wait to go to the hospital. And at some point my hands were shaking so bad that I couldn't eat soup. And we would have games at work seeing, is there any soup left when Natalie reaches her mouth? So we thought it was all really funny. Never occurred to me at 19 years old, maybe I should call the doctor and tell them, my neck is huge, but I didn't exactly know where the thyroid was or what all the symptoms were. I wasn't really informed. We couldn't use the internet like we do now. There was some like previous form of the internet. I still went to the library to search for my information. So I was like, well, I'm going to see the doctor in 3 weeks. I guess it's fine. The day came that I had my appointment and I was sitting in the waiting room. One of my friends, she was with me. So you see all the doctors coming in and like calling out names, and it's like, oh, maybe I'll have this doctor, maybe that one. And there's this cranky ass doctor coming out. I'm like, oh my God, I hope I don't have this doctor. And of course he calls out my name and I'm like, no, all the others, they look so nice. This one looks horrible. So he called out my name and I get up. He has never seen me before, right? We're in the waiting room and he just called my name. He knows nothing about me, just that I've been referred and he needs to have a look at me. So he looked at me and he's like, I hope they sent you in here urgently. I'm like, what? He's like, so how long have you been on the waiting list? I'm like, 4 months. He's like, let's go to cardiology. You're like, what? Where are we going? He's like, I need to make sure your heart's gonna last today. Like, what? So there I am, walking with this doctor, and we are going past all these like 70, 80-year-old people waiting in line, and I have to go first. Like, there's this 80-year-old lady sitting with an IV like this, and I'm the urgent one. I need to go first into cardiology where they stick all the thingies on you and on your head and everything and see if you're fine. I'm like, oh my gosh. Again, I'm 19, so I laugh about it and I get gigglish with my friend who was probably about 21 at that time. And we just giggle and we make jokes. And at some point, when all these things are attached to me, right? At some point, the little curtain goes open and the person behind it says, okay, right, girls, you are really, really funny, but I cannot get a good hard reading if you keep on like joking and laughing like this. So can you please stop it? So that was funny. We got around to being serious for about 5 minutes so he could check my heart rate, which was not really good, but it was good enough to go and sit and have my consultation. And that really freaked me out. I'm like, what is going on here? We had this consultation and he ran all these blood work and tests and make sure that my heart was fine because he was scared that I was going to have a heart attack soon. So I was 19. I've been having these symptoms for 3 years. I told him about my shortness of breath, that I had to go to breathing therapy, and that I can now really ground myself. And he's like, yeah, you know why you can't breathe? Because your heart is in so much distress that you can't get enough oxygen. And I was just freaked out. I'm like, what are you telling me? Long story short, I had to go into the hospital every 4 days for a whole bunch of different tests. And it turned out that I had Graves' disease, which I later found out is a autoimmune disease to the thyroid. Well, at the time, so I'm talking about like 13 years ago, maybe even longer. I'm older than that. Over 15 years ago. My gosh, time flies. He just told me, okay, you have these things called Graves. It will go away on its own, but we just have to make sure that you survive this year and a half before it goes away, right? With all the things I know now, I'm like, really? You told me that? But anyway, I was 19, I didn't know anything. And he told me, so you need to take these pills for your thyroid, you need to take these pills for your heart, and I had a whole bunch of pills to counter all the side effects of all the other pills. So I had about 13 pills that I had to take every single day, and I had to go into the hospital for tests every 4 days for the first 6 months of my treatment. So I had treatment for about a year and a half. My Graves was under control, and I thought I was cured. I thought I was cured because the doctor told me, okay, you're fine, you don't have to take any more pills, but in about 20 years, your thyroid will go the other way, so it will go too slow instead of too fast. With Graves, your thyroid, it works too fast. And the thyroid is like the motor of your body. And that's when your digestion goes too fast, you feel anxious, and that's why my heart rate went too fast as well. That's what caused all of my symptoms. So the doctor told me, well, you're cured. Your Graves' disease is gone, but since you're so young, in about 20 years, your thyroid is going to be too slow. But that's fine. You're just going to have to take a pill for it for the rest of your life, but that's about it. Well, that didn't sound too bad. So he said, okay, you're good. Okay, here's your stamp. I'll sign this paper and you're released from the hospital. No more tests, no more pills, no more nothing. Go enjoy your life. Great, I thought. I'm cured. 7 years later, I got pregnant. I had a pregnancy out of hell, which I will make a video about at another point in time. And I didn't know what was going on. I had bad moods all the time. I was so tired I couldn't stay awake for more than about 3-4 hours per day. It was really extreme. They thought I had postpartum depression 6 months after I gave birth to my daughter. Years later, I found out that I actually have Hashimoto's disease, which is an autoimmune disease of the thyroid, but now the thyroid goes too slow. The doctors gave me a pill for it, so just take this pill every morning before you wake up and you'll be fine. Okay, I thought that's fine. I had to test my thyroid every year. The numbers, they looked fine, but I still wasn't feeling well. I will record another video about my entire Hashimoto story and pregnancy story in detail. Long story short is when I was researching Hashimoto's and figured out it's actually not just hypothyroidism where your thyroid goes too slow, it's a whole autoimmune thing. I also figured out that Graves was an autoimmune disease of the thyroid, which I never knew. I never knew I had this autoimmune disease of the thyroid that was just in remission. I wasn't cured, I was in remission, and this doctor failed to tell me about it because I'm sure he knew about it, but I was 19, so he probably thought best to just keep it light, keep it simple, and tell me I was cured. The lesson that I got from this and that I hope to convey to others who are teenagers or very young, or maybe doctors who are watching, that teenagers, they can remember. I remember every single thing this doctor told me. If he would have told me I had an autoimmune disease of the thyroid, I would have done things differently while I was pregnant years later. I would have pressed for a test because I told them, oh, I've had this thyroid thing when I was about 19, but I'm cured. So nobody ever tested me. Nobody ever looked for nothing while I was pregnant. And I think a lot of my cascading downhill health could have been prevented, would have been presented with the right information when I was 16, 17, 18, and 19 years old. The other thing is, teenagers, they know when something is wrong in their body. They're not just being lazy. They're not just having panic attacks, you know? They're not just making it up. If they are really, really suffering from issues symptoms for years at a time, it's real, and you just have to search until you find it. So for any of you out there watching, don't give up, because nobody ever made me believe that I have panic attacks. I did what the doctors told me. I went to the breathing therapy and I did all of that, but I never ever gave up. Didn't matter how young I was, didn't matter that nobody believed me. I just kept going. I got my diagnosis in the end and my treatment. I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe, hit the like button, and follow the Unchargeables for more stories like this from me personally and from all the others that are in our community. And I'll see you in the next video.